Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose. And it's difficult to gauge Sony this generation. Their PR and some of the decisions that they have made is just bizarre. Thankfully, they're still making some great games. No problems there. But they've done some strange things. And the price hike for PlayStation Plus has to be at the top of that list. Well, about that, Sony was asked about that price hike, and they defended it with, how should I put this? They're just confident, and I'll say that much. But we're going to get into all of that today, and then also an Xbox shakeup that will impact how they handle all these new publishers, such as Activision and Bethesda. Before we get started, though, do make sure to hit that subscribe and ring that bell. That way, every time I post a new video, which is every Monday through Friday, it'll be delivered directly to your device. It just makes it a little bit easier to stay up to date, so make sure not to forget to hit those buttons. With that said, though, let's just go and jump right into things. Starting off with Ubisoft, and unfortunately also some delays. More on that here in just a second, but Ubisoft did post their quarterly results, and it was for the most part pretty good. Assassin's Creed Mirage performed very well for them. They noted its first week was solid and right in line with Origins and Odyssey in terms of player count, which, I mean, if you were hoping for more of these smaller scope Assassin's Creed titles, this is a great sign. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, we still need to wait and see if it can actually sustain that success over time. But if it can, that would all but ensure Ubisoft will do more games like this. If they figure out they can make these smaller games and still make a similar amount of money, yeah, they'll surely do more. The other big news that came from these results, though, were a couple delays. Apparently, they delayed a quote-unquote large game into their next fiscal year, which runs from April 2024 to March of 2025. They're not saying exactly what this game is just yet, but there is some speculation that this might be Star Wars Outlaws, which that would be very unfortunate if true. I know a lot of people are excited for that game, as it really does look good so far, but keep in mind that nothing is confirmed as of this moment. So it's really just best to wait for Ubisoft to make a more official announcement. But one game that they were open about here is Skull and Bones. Yep, it's been delayed for the umpteenth time, though honestly, I don't really think anybody's surprised by this point. This is pretty much like saying the sky is blue. We know. Skull and Bones and delays, they go hand in hand, though I'm not even really sure how much anticipation is actually left for this game. I mean, the thing about this game is that it was created off the success of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and that game was, released like 10 years ago? I guess if anything, Skull and Bones lives to see another day, as they claim it will now release in early 2024 between January and March, but I do have to wonder how a game like this can survive its countless delays by this point. There's claims that this is a government thing. They refuse to let it die, but somehow, all of this can happen, but we can't get a new Rayman game. Life really just isn't fair sometimes. Moving on, though, it does sound like that there's more acquisitions on the way. This is according to a report by Axios, where a firm by the name of Drakestar Partners predicted that mergers and acquisitions will pick up after what they called an extended quiet period. I mean, okay, outside of the Activision Blizzard acquisition, there was some slowdown, maybe from some other companies, but they believe that will change in 2024. They believe the most active players will be Tencent, Sony, Take-Two, and Savvy Scopely, but they also noted that Nintendo, EA, and Nexon could potentially make some moves as well because they're sitting on a large amount of cash. And I think that's the part that strikes me as the most interesting. I mean, I think most of us are kind of expecting Tencent and Sony to make some moves because Tencent is always active and Sony has made it public knowledge. They are, in fact, looking for more acquisitions. So I'm not really surprised to hear they're on the hunt. But seeing Nintendo on this list is quite interesting to think about. Nintendo isn't necessarily known for making a lot of acquisitions, but as they head into a new console cycle, the idea of more studios could actually go a long way for them. Something that fans don't often talk about is increased development time, and as visuals gets better and better, the longer it takes to develop these games. So having a couple more studios under their leadership, that could ensure a more consistent library for their next platform, though I do wonder what some potential targets for them could be, and there's a few that comes to mind. One is Platinum Games. I think that's the most obvious here, as they've been great partners for Nintendo this generation with games like Bayonetta and Astral Chain. Both of those are excellent. Go check them out. I also feel like they add a little extra something that Nintendo doesn't have with their first-party lineup currently, so I think that they would make a perfect fit for Nintendo. Grezzo is another one that comes to mind. They're a little less known, but they've done a good job remaking some of Nintendo's games like Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D, Majora's Mask 3D, and even Link's awakening for the Switch, and they've also shown some promise with their own unique IP like Ever Oasis. So they could make an interesting pickup as well. And then lastly, and this one might be a little out of left field, but Level 5. I've always felt like their games fit Nintendo's consoles very well, whether that be Ni no Kuni, Professor Layton, Yokai Watch, or even their upcoming game, Deca Police. I think that this could be an interesting pairing if they decided they wanted to go in this direction. But, at the end of the day, all of this is just speculation. I just thought it was interesting that Nintendo is viewed as a potential buyer in 2024. Maybe something to look out for there. All right, so let's go and get into this PlayStation story, though, because they're once again making waves for increasing the price of PlayStation Plus. Earlier in the year, they announced its price is increasing by up to 35%, and that right there is the key to this entire story. This is not some small price increase. It's a price increase of up to $40. I mean, when you see subscription services go up, it's usually like an extra $1 a month, but here, Sony's like, we can do better than that. Let's just go ahead and make it an extra $40 a year. It's honestly ridiculous, and we're going to come back to that here in just a second, but Sony's Eric Lempel was asked about this in an interview with Barron's, and he attempted to defend this decision, which raised a lot of bells online. Not everybody liked what he had to say, and it's pretty easy to understand why after you read it. So he goes on to say, like practically everything else in the world, we have to look at our pricing and we have to adjust to market conditions. We want to make PlayStation Plus great. With our reboot last year and introducing the new tier system, a lot of consumers have recognized that there's a lot of value in PlayStation 5. Now, okay, so he's essentially saying the price matches the quality that they have to offer in all the PlayStation Plus tiers. Now, I think that that's very debatable, definitely when you consider Xbox Game Pass, which is the closest thing to PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium. And that's the thing that really struck me about this interview, because he also was later asked about Xbox Game Pass and their day one releases, and this is what he had to say. It comes down to what you're going to get in the service in terms of the type of game and the quality of games. I can't comment on what the competition is doing, but with us, we feel we're offering a great curated catalog of games as well as other features and services with PlayStation Plus. Now, to me, I think that this is an absolutely ridiculous response, and let me explain. Whether he wants to compare PlayStation Plus to Xbox Game Pass truthfully doesn't matter. He can ignore Game Pass all he wants and say that we can't comment on what the competition does, but the truth of the matter is, customers absolutely will compare the two. These are in direct competition, especially now that PlayStation Plus Extra is priced similarly to Xbox Game Pass. Customers are going to compare the two services, and when you look at it, there's a pretty stark difference in the offering between the two. So that's really the key part to this entire story. Sony suddenly decided that their subscriptions are worth this new increased price tag. Again, it's not like this was some small increase. I think that if it was a small increase, people might have been annoyed, but ultimately they would have accepted it and fans would have just moved on. But that's not really what happened here. Instead, it's now $80 a year for PlayStation Plus Essential. That used to be $60. $135 for Extra, or $160 for Premium. So with these drastic price increases, customers, they're going to look at the competition and what they're offering for a similar price, and they're going to come back to Sony and be like, okay, are you going to do something similar to them to make this worth it? Because you have to do something to justify this price hike, or at least you would think. But that's the thing. They haven't. So far, Sony's just kind of going about business like nothing changed. They were asked about possibly including more day one games here, and they basically shut that question down. So to me, that sounds like a hard no. They just believe that their service, as of right now, is worth that price tag. And I'd say that that is very debatable. I mean, if you look at it, just to play online games on PlayStation right now, that costs more than a AAA game. To play Call of Duty online, they want you to pay $80. So Call of Duty will essentially cost $150 a year now on PlayStation, the same franchise that will soon come over to Xbox Game Pass day one. Now, I understand some people might be a little upset about this topic. I'm not trying to just, bash on Sony. I'm not trying to tear them down. I love their games as well. But you look at the decisions that they've made this generation, and with their dominant lead, it feels like they're kind of taking advantage of their fan base right now. And this right here, this is probably the most egregious example of that. This is just not justified, and I don't see how you can when you look at the competition and what they're doing. Let me know what you all think about all of this, though. Do you like the reasoning that they gave with their defense or not? Speaking of the competition, though, Xbox, they are going through a big shakeup right now. They're reorganizing their leadership positions with promotions, and this is actually really interesting because it puts them in a much expanded position with Bethesda and ZeniMax. So there's actually an infographic that was posted online, and you can see at the top here, Phil Spencer is the CEO of Microsoft Gaming. He's still the unquestionable leader, but then below him you have Matt Booty. He was previously in control of first-party games for Xbox Game Studios, but his role is actually expanding here. His new title is President of Game Content and Studios, which includes ZeniMax. Now, what this means is that the Bethesda publishing arm, which up to this point hasn't been fully integrated into Xbox, they've kind of remained independent to a degree, but they will now report to Matt Booty. Now, ZeniMax and Bethesda, they're still going to have their own leaders and everything. They are going to continue to operate as a limited integrated entity under Jamie Letter, so that's who they'll continue to report to. But then Matt Booty, he will be more included. Basically, that just means that they're going to collaborate more. In theory, this should help avoid situations like Redfall, as Xbox can be a little bit more hands-on with a more collaborative approach. Now, the other big promotion here, though, was for Sarah Bond, and you can see here in their internal memo, it says, to manage the platform of today and build the platform of tomorrow, we are bringing together the teams that will make this possible. Sarah Bond will lead this team as president of Xbox, bringing together devices, player and creator experiences, platform engineering, strategy, business planning, data and analytics, and business development. So this is a huge promotion for her, and looking from the outside in, I think that this is a good move. She has really started to make a name for herself as she appears on stage a lot. She's been a big public figure for them next to Phil Spencer, and now she's been promoted to president of Xbox, so big congrats to her. There's actually a lot of speculation right now that she could eventually step into Phil Spencer's job once he eventually retires. Maybe she's the next in line. Hopefully that doesn't happen for a long, long time. We like Phil, but Sarah Bond has honestly done a great job from what I've seen. Again, I'm looking from the outside in, but she's very personal in her interviews. She has a lot of passion, and I think that she would do a good job if it does eventually happen. Of course, we don't know what her vision would be if she was the head of Xbox, but in the meantime, this entire shakeup really centers on the idea of tying Bethesda and Xbox close together. It's something that needed to happen. It lets Xbox be a little bit more hands-on, and now that Activision Blizzard is coming into the fold, I mean, they have a lot of studios under their belt. There's going to be more of this in the future. It'll actually be very interesting to see who replaces Bobby Kotick when he leaves at the end of 2023. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, did you cancel PlayStation Plus after the price hike? And yeah, out of the majority of you that were subscribed, did in fact cancel afterwards. And that really is something that I wonder about. How many people will cancel once their subscription is up? And ultimately, is it worth it for Sony? I mean, we're not talking about just subscription money either, because I think that that's a little short-sighted. What I mean by that is that, yes, they can have less subscribers and still make the same amount of money because it costs more. But there's a little bit more to this because, I mean, we're not just talking about subscription money. They're also losing the money that they would make on that customer every time they buy a multiplayer-centric game like Call of Duty, as an example. There was this whole big hoopla this year and how important Call of Duty is to PlayStation. But yeah, if somebody decides that $80 is too expensive, they also lost a unit sold on Call of Duty. They're going to lose those microtransactions and the DLC that would be attached to said game. So it's not just about canceled subscriptions alone, but it's also about all of that extra money that ties into that subscription. So I do wonder about that as well. But yeah, I'm not all that surprised to see a lot of people cancel their subscriptions. But this is also the reason that I've preached competition for so long. You see it online all the time, but there are certain fans out there that wants Microsoft or Sony to go out of business or, you know, exit gaming or whatever. But this is what happens when a company is in a dominant position. They can take advantage of their fan base and extort them for more money. And if one of them were to leave gaming, that would only get worse. Sony's so confident in their decisions right now because they can kind of get away with it. But if Xbox was more competitive, would they still make these same decisions? And I think that is very debatable, and it is something for fans to maybe think about as well. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode. But if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.